I think that looks pretty good for this little tail, and probably both sides of this thing, just because I don't really need to worry too much about geometry on both sides like we did the wing. I'm just going to make it the same thing. So I'm going to actually project that line into my sketch, if it'll let me. Alright, it won't let me. So another construction line. Grab that point, and let's mirror this. Now you can see copy is not checked. It's something I did earlier. Just make sure that copy is checked so you actually get both of these in here. And I'm going to exit. Alright, next thing I want to do is sketch on tail plane 2, which might be hard to see, but we're going to have the same thing here. Just real quick, let me go ahead and just do a multi-point spline. So you can see here, let me scale this up a little bit, it might be able to help you see a little bit better. Doing a multi-point spline isn't necessarily a bad thing. The time you start to get into trouble is if you look at these multi-point splines. Obviously we're changing direction, we've got some drastic change here. Really, that's alright, but if you want to start adjusting these spline handles, then you really start to get in trouble with this curvature. Which is why I suggest you start with a 2-point spline and you adjust the handles and you see if you can get your curvature right, because these multi-point splines, they're not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're going to want to do some tweaking in here, you're really going to want the control of those handles, or possibly use the polygon method, the control polygon, which is the same thing as the handles. It's just a little bit better visualization. It might be a little bit easier for you to get nice geometry this way because you're controlling both handles at the same time. Alright, so what we want to do, let's pierce that, and same thing over here, and let's look at this thing. Alright, because it's a straight line, we actually this doesn't get wider back here like it does in the wing. So in all honesty, we really don't need to do this extra step here. So I'm gonna exit this sketch. I'm gonna delete that, and I'm actually going to delete that second plane as well. So there's really no benefit unless you want to change the shape back here to adding that extra sketch. And for this, I don't really want to. I don't know enough about the shape of this wing back here to make any sort of judgment call. So I'm just going to keep it straight, and I think it'll look just fine in the final product. There is a slight problem here though, because if we go to do a boundary surface, if we select this, it gets that entire sketch, which is fine. If we go direction 2 and we select this, it's actually selecting the entire 3D, the projected curve, which, if you remember, it was this line, this bottom straight line, and this back one here. So you can see the results are, well, probably not expected, but they're definitely interesting, and it's obviously not what we want. We don't need a double tail wing thing back here. So that is definitely a problem by using this 2D sketch in order to create that projected curve. So it simplified things back here because I only had one projected curve to use for that Pierce relation, but it also complicated things here. Now the good thing about this, these were straight lines. We don't have to really follow these for any particular reason. We made them straight lines on both the front and the side sketch before we did this projected curve. So really what I can do is I can come in here, I can do an extruded surface, and I can just take it up towards the body. Because of where it hits the body, I can just do up to surface, select that, and be done with it. Now the downside to this, once we start blending, we might run into a problem where we don't really like how this is all going to turn out when it's blending. So I'm probably going to avoid the up to surface reference, and I'm just going to do a blind extrude. But you could also do up to surface and select the right plane. So that might be a better option if you want to keep a reference in there. So what that did was it took it up to our right sketch plane, the same as our wing back here, which obviously was a little bit different because we had a sketch. But that way you don't have to worry about actually entering a dimension. You still have a reference to take it up to, and that reference is not this surface. So we can go back, we can edit this body, we can edit this little wing that we created, and not worry about the interface between the two changing. Alright, for the end of this thing, same thing as the wing, I'm just going to do a quick filled surface. Alright, so just keep that in mind. The geometry, the curves were straight, so we didn't have to worry about doing anything and using them. Of course, now you have this curve sitting here, which appears to be unused, but when you go into the parent-child, obviously we added that relation with it. So it's there. I mean, it was used, and we also created the plane off of it. So it wasn't for nothing, but you don't actually have to use that in your curvature here. All right, let's go ahead and save this again. And really, the last big thing we need to do is we need to add that the little wing that was on the bottom here. Now we don't have a real great reference for it. Like I showed you before, when we look at this thing from the front, we well, I thought we did. Come on. All right. Apparently it doesn't want to show me the sketch anymore. But when we looked at this thing from the front, the one centered wheel for the landing gear was in the way, so you didn't really get a good reference, and we don't have a back view for this thing. But I'm pretty sure that it was about halfway up. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use this top mid plane, and the reason I'm going to do that is because I know that's inside this bottom piece. It's inside the body here. So on this top mid plane, I'm actually going to look at it from the bottom. I'm going to draw this wing in here, and I don't have a real good reference for the wing, so I'm just going to have to kind of make it up as I go along. But let's just tweak these handles a little bit and give this thing some shape. Alright, now one thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to dimension these here, because I don't have any points that I can actually snap to. I don't want this geometry changing on me. Add my construction lines and give us some dimensions. Again, I'm just kind of making these numbers up. There's no reason for these numbers, so don't get hung up on the values. If you're trying to model this thing as I go along, and your numbers aren't 220 and 800 or 40 degrees and 80 degrees, not really a big deal. It's all about the look of the model. We don't have an exact dimension for any of these wings, so don't get hung up on it. I guess is all I'm trying to say. All right. So what we have here now, I'm going to do an extrude. Let's rotate this thing around. Actually, let's look at it from this side. Obviously not that direction. Let's see what 500 looks like. Probably a little bit bigger than that. Let's just go with that. That's reasonable. All right. So now we have this little wing piece in here, and I only drew half of it because obviously when we mirror this thing, we're going to get the other half out of it. So let me save this thing again, and let's go ahead and let's just mirror this thing and take a look at what we have so far. So right plane, and I'm going to select the bodies from here because I know they're not I know the hidden ones are all the helper ones, and obviously